Now I'm going to have a go at these wheel wells. I've already, you can see, put bits of plastic card in a couple of places just to give the wing some strength and it's not flexing, which it was earlier. I don't want any give at all. There may be a bit there, but you'd have to apply quite a bit of pressure. So they're set and good in place for both wings. And now I'm going to try and create some generic wheel wells out of plastic card. So I'm just going to leave all that to dry and we'll come back to it once it's set thoroughly. Now the glue's dried, I can start trimming all the excess off with a brand new scalpel blade and just lightly score around the edge. And then we'll start filing the excess off. Sanding that smooth so it's a bit more presentable now. Trimmed the plastic back here. I've also, I don't know if you can see there, like almost like a bit of sealant or the bottom edge there, which is just Vallejo's plastic putty, just to finish off the join there. Right, so the wings are finished. Machine gun covers I've sanded. There's a few bumps and blemishes there, but that makes it more realistic. You don't want a super fine flush finish. Wheel wells are finished as well. Nothing to sing and dance about, but they are far better than what I had. So they look the part. So the wings are finished. I can be put to one side. The canopy. I've cleaned it up. There's a few marks on the top there that I need to sort out. Very crude, but it'll have to do. If I was going to do a proper job, I'd glue these pieces together and create a vac form canopy, but I ain't doing that. Rear tail and rudder parts have been cleaned up, ready to attach at some point. Next thing to do is to glue the fuselage halves together. That'll be my next stage. And I want to leave the engine out because I want to clean all this stuff up here. Make sure that we've got some nice clean edges. That's going to be hard to clean with the engine installed properly anyway. And I think I can feed the engine through on that. It's just a matter of trying to feed this wire through the hole that they gave you in this firewall front, and then through the hole at the back here. Once the fuselage is sanded and clean, then I shall start adding the wings. So the fuselage halves have been glued together, sanded, riveted and rescribed. Then I put the rear rudder on. This is a terrible fit. The rear tail on the fuselage is narrower than the rudder itself, so I can feel a huge bulge. It's fitted, it's staying. I'm not messing with that. You can see I've glued the wings on. These areas around here took quite a bit of effort, and I reinforced them with bits of plastic card. Probably can't see now because I've painted them all, just to reinforce these joints around these openings. So they're nice and sharp now. As you can see, I've put the wings on. Not much trouble there, they went on okay. I don't know if you can see, not much of a gap. I know you can see there, not much of a gap at all. The gaps here, luckily been covered by these coolant radiators. Talking of which, you can see I've made from scratch these rear flaps here. The kit ones were okay, but I found there was a large gap all around the inside of the edge there, and on one of them it stuck out by about 1 mil, so I would have to sand it down or do some sanding on the actual main radiator. So it was easy just to create some new ones from scratch, quick and easy. I put a blanking plate in between the meshes so we can't see straight through. So that's those two done. They fit pretty good as well. I've done a dry fit onto the wings, so they're okay. I also replaced, there's a flap here. This is the Airfix part. It's odd looking shape, so that will be fixed in later. Right, never assume anything, and I always do. Where do I start? I masked the canopy while it was off, while the parts were off. It's easy to do that. I never mask an area and then use the framework as a guide with a sharp scalpel blade. I just makes me wince thinking about that. Easier the thought of a scalpel blade and using the frame, and then if I slip, no. So I did that, masked it all up, and I dry fitted the canopy. Fitted okay. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. Glued the first part, put that part in, then glued the third part, sorry. This does open, but I've sealed it in to stop any overspray going through the gaps when I spray the framework. The problem came when I put the machine gun cover and the engine cowl on. This part particularly, it sat too high, about less than 1 millimeter, which is nothing really. So I had to think of a way of lowering this part so it fitted flush with the front edge of the windscreen here. So I took less than 1 millimeter off four places. This area here, and likewise on the other side, which would drop this part fractionally downwards. So that worked, but then I was left with a gap at the front here, don't know if you can see. So I've had to use some plastic card just to fill that gap there between the end of this part and the front of the windscreen. Now that's worked. It's something I could have done without. I should have dry fitted these two pieces and come across that issue earlier, but I didn't. I just assumed, as I've said. So it's not a brilliant fit. It never was, but that fits flush with the windscreen now, and there's no gap here. I had to lower this filter down fractionally so it fitted reasonably flush with this area here. This will need sanding, just blending in. And here I just took a bit off the rear and then tapered downwards, because I don't really want to change the height of this diameter. So it all fits reasonably well now. Not brilliant, but it will do. While I'm at it, I did the wheel bays, painted them. Once they're dry, I just need to weather them, but I'll weather them when I start weathering the rest of the 109. The coolant radiators fitted with no problems whatsoever really, slight gaps, but nothing to worry about, filled in with Vallejo putty. So, fingers crossed, I can add my first coat of paint around the framework. Once I'm happy with any issues, gaps or anything that looks horrible to the eye, I'll sort it out. Once I'm happy with that, then I can hopefully get on with the base coat. Right, I've applied my first coat, my first colour, which I think is RLM 65, as they call it, although the colour I've mixed could be anything. I used light blue XF23 mixed with XF2 white. Quite a high percentage, I think nearly 35–40%, maybe even more, to come up with this shade. So you can see the difference there. And of course, when I let it dry, there were blemishes all over the place. There's a surprise. So I've sorted them out, I think. Along the fuselage and the slats, I had issues. If I'd have been bothered to scribe a panel line down the centre here, and of course there would be one on top, then I could have hidden that issue, but I didn't. So there you go. So I'm going to patch these areas up now with my mixed colour. Let that dry and then flip it round and I'll get on with the splinter camouflage. I've gone ahead and added the splinter camouflage using the old blue tack, white tack sausage method. I'm sure you'll know what that is. If not, there's plenty of videos out there to tell you how. Now, because I'm a big fan of the Tamiya acrylic paints, and I use the word acrylic loosely, I've mixed the paints. I could have gone with some of the hot products, so like Guns, who've got a specific RLM colour range, and I think Vallejo do an RLM colour range. I stand corrected on that. I'm not keen on Vallejo because it can sometimes clog up my airbrush, and not only that, because of what I'm going to do next, I find if I sand that paint afterwards, it clogs up, it catches, it tears. It's almost like the surface is still elastic. So I've had to mix Tamiya acrylic paints. The other reason why I won't use what I call hot products is because of the stink. I'd have to wear a mask, get the extractor going full belt and the windows open. Now I do use hot products, as I call them, like AK's Extreme Metals, but that's because it's the only game in town and the only option that I'm very happy with. You ain't going to get an acrylic paint that matches metallic paints like that. You've got to go the hot product way. So I've had to mix the colours. And for the light green, I used XF89 dark green 2 with quite a bit of XF88 dark yellow 2. Now you may want to, and I wish I had, add a bit of XF2 white just to wash the colour out a bit. On hindsight, I wish I'd have done that now, so something bearing in mind if you're going to go down this route. For the dark colour, I used XF61 dark green with again XF88. I also added to the dark green royal blue XF3, about 3 or 4 drops, not a lot, just to brighten the colour up a bit. So I've got my shades, tones, whatever you want to call them, and the trouble with doing this is that they look nothing like what's applied on the 109, and that's the trouble. Until the paint's dried, I don't know whether I've created the right tone or not, or shade. I think I've got away with it. It's not 100%. I'm sure there'll be people out there going,
"Now, I don't believe you wanting to do that, did you?"
That's my fault because of the route I've gone. But I'm reasonably happy with it. It's hard to tell through the camera foam because it tends to make everything contrasty. It's a bit more subtle than what you're seeing now. Hopefully the end photographs may show it a bit better. It just makes everything so contrasty. So the next thing I do is I'll leave that a few days. I've got other things to be getting on with. I also want to talk about the demarcations. I've created a soft edge. I quite like the way Roy Cross illustrated the 109 with the slightly uneven, wavy demarcation. It's slightly soft. I personally think it would have been too stark for a model of this scale. 172, 148, yeah, fine. But when you get to this size 24, I just think it needs to be a bit more softer on the eye. So, yeah, as I said, let this dry, and then once it's dried thoroughly, I shall wet sand the whole surface because it's as rough as a bear's bum. Wash it all, wipe it all clean. Add the decals. Now, I've ordered some decals that are, I was going to cut out stencils. That was my original thought. But that is you know, without the right cutting machine, I'd have to do it all by hand, and on you know, that's just not gonna happen. Thankfully, there is a decal sheet that matches closely with the Airfix one, near enough. So I've ordered that. Should be here in the next few days, I hope. I hope it's okay. I haven't seen it yet in the flesh. So then I apply the decals after I've sanded the surface and cleaned it. As I said, I'm just gonna sand the surface, just get rid of this rough texture. On these it's not that bad. A well-worn bit of foam back sandpaper, there's hardly anything to it. Usually, sometimes I just use a cloth that's wet, damp cloth. Fresh water. I'm just going to go gently over the surface. Underneath. Damp cloth, just wipe off the excess. Just checking that I haven't burnt through. But that suffices that now, just clean that up. And that is as smooth as a baby's you know what. I don't know whether you can tell the difference, but there definitely is a beautiful finish on that now. That's ready for decals now. No need to give it varnish. So I'll get on with the other one, and then same process, and then get on with the bigger piece. I'm going to start wet sanding this 109 now. I'm going to wet sand the whole area, although nooks and crannies isn't the end of the world if I miss them. It just gives the preps the surface for the satin coat or gloss coat or varnish, whatever I choose. Areas where I know there's going to be large decals or decals that carry a lot of carrier film, I will concentrate a bit more on. Just being careful that I don't burn through the paint. It's a process I'm used to and I like. I can't abide glossing the whole model just to put decals on, especially the whole area when you think, well, you're not covering the whole plane. I know some people who just gloss certain areas where the decals are going to go, and that's it. Each to their own, whatever floats your boat, whatever makes you happy. That's what modelling is all about. I'm just showing you what I do and the way I go. I should have this done in 15-20 minutes, sanded and clean, and we'll have a look once I've done that. So I've sanded all that. That took about, what, 10 minutes, if that. I treat each area as separate, so I'll do the top wing, wipe it all off, do the other top wing, wipe it all off, turn it round, do the wing there, wipe it all off. So I'm doing it in sections, so I'm keeping control of where the water's going. Then I'll wipe it all off, and then it will need another clean. So I've got a fresh cup of water, nice big old brush, soft, and I will do the same, going through certain areas, especially areas like this, just trying to dig out any loose particles from the sanding, and then with a clean cloth, just wipe it off. Once this is dry, I'll go through with a dry brush and just once again try and get rid of any particles that are still left once they've dried. Do the top, gently by the way. So as I've said before, do a section at a time, you've got more control. and then with a clean, damp cloth, gently wipe the surface. Never use tissue paper, never. As I said, all I'm doing is removing the surface particles that are loose, and at the same time slightly burnishing the surface. So I don't know if you can see that, it's dry now. There's a slight sheen there, and that's what it's all about. I've got a nice surface now to put my decals on, and a nice surface prepped for when I apply the coat varnish to seal everything in. So I'll get on with the rest of the plane, clean it up. I'll leave it to one side for a couple of hours and then go back with a dry brush and make sure I've got everything out of the nooks and crannies. I've left the canopy area for the obvious reasons. There's no need for that. No need to prep that. So I'll get on with wiping clean the rest of the surfaces now.